This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Good afternoon and good evening to all of you, wherever you are tuning in from, anywhere in the globe. Thank you and welcome to INC Radio Florida. It is the sunny side up here on the East Coast of the globe. We are so happy to have all of you join us. So whether you're tuning in on our YouTube channel, please be sure to let us know where you're tuning in from, because we always like to hear from all of our viewers. I am Sister Joy Ali, and I am delighted to have all of you join us because we have a really exciting topic, a topic that is pretty near and dear our hearts here for INC Radio Florida. We're going to be discussing leadership. And you might even see here right next to me, we're going to be discussing, and particularly when it comes to leadership, we're going to be talking about dads, the role of leadership when it comes to the dads in the family. So we'll introduce you in just a minute, but we're going to go over and go to the west coast of Florida. Brother Robert, welcome. Thank you also for being here. Is it sunny? Is it a sunny side up over there too as well?
Hey, good morning and good evening and good afternoon to everyone who's watching. And hi, Sister Joy. Yeah, we are actually only an hour and a half from you guys, so hopefully the sun keeps up. I mean, this is for us in Florida. This is the season where we refer to it as faux fall,
Both.
right? So
I like
this is
it. Yeah.
faux fall
Yeah.
because when the rest of our friends here across the country, especially here on the East Coast, are kind of struggling now with their 40-degree temperatures. We're breaking out our sweaters because it's now 61 degrees. So
Oh, yes. And
that's sweater weather for us.
yes, it is. I was gonna say 61 degrees is really good, cool weather for us Floridians. We love it. Yeah, we will take out the sweaters. We might even take out some boots, maybe.
Yeah, well, because we got to dust the boots off because otherwise, when would we wear them? So
There you go. There you go. We'll take it. But we're really excited to have all of you guys join in. And particularly here, I'm going to introduce here on my left side, or maybe as you're viewing, it's on my right side. I'll take the chance to introduce this handsome guy.
Good morning to our wonderful host here. A warm Florida sunshine welcome to our host here on INC Radio Florida. We hope you all are ready to enjoy the show that we'll present to you today. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to kind of to ask you both questions because for you,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
You're a dad. You're my husband.
Well, last check,
Dad, and then Brother Robert. And I like the fact that both of you are in different seasons. So I'm going to be picking away and asking you both some questions. And we'll first start off with you, Brother Billy.
Sure.
Right. So as a dad, right? There's a tremendous weight of responsibility. I think for moms and dads, right? Moms and dads, we have this weight once you become a parent to take care of our families, and that's a big deal. But particularly when it comes to dads, you have to provide, right? You have to provide. And so when it comes to leadership, and Brother Robert, I'm going to also ask you this, as a dad, you're in the zone, right? You gotta work for your family, you gotta provide for your family. While you're in the middle of doing all that, how do you demonstrate every day? Because it's every day. How do you still demonstrate patience and love and all that? Because you're in it, you're in the zone, right? Especially with you, because you are in a field that's it's very demanding and it can get pretty hectic.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to touch on that? What do you do to provide for your family, and then how do you incorporate that every day?
Well,
and if we could, Sister Joy, could you just shift the camera just a little bit
Oh,
to your
sure,
left,
sure.
so that way we can see that handsome brother. There you go.
There.
Well, Sister Joy, those are a lot of questions, so I'll do my best to give you.
I was taking notes. I remember the questions.
Well, I'll help you out here. Okay, so first of all, as a dad, what do you do to provide for your family? What's your
okay,
role?
so I'm a public servant. I'm a first responder. I work for one of our local fire departments here. I'm a paramedic. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. So that is what I do for our livelihood as a parent. But when it comes to parenting, it always reminds me, head of the household. Who is the head of the household, right? No, normally that's the responsibility of the father or the dad. So your question to me was, what do I do? How am I able to manage all this?
Yes, yeah.
And also add children to the mix as well. Well, it begins with our faith, most definitely.
Okay. It definitely begins with faith. So how do you, when you say that it begins with our faith, for you, how do you show that? How do you demonstrate that with love
Well,
to your family?
right, most definitely, yeah.
I mean, I can give examples,
Yeah.
as your wife, but coming from you, like from your perspective, like
Well, it's discipline first of all, right? Yeah, you have a parent, so you're given as parents. I mean, God has blessed us with these wonderful gifts, children, right? So that alone puts a good responsibility on the shoulders, not only of the mother, of the father as well, as a parent. So being the head of the household, a lot of discipline, and a lot of prayers as well, because there's no manual on how to really guide a family or raise children. We learn as we go. But however, as members of Church of Christ, we're given the best manual, and that is God's words. So that is what I rely on as a parent.
I like it. I like it a lot. And Brother Robert, I'm going to go to you too, and thank you for that, because I think that just reminded us all, right? That is the foundation. So Brother Robert, for you, and I love the season of life that you're in right now, because you can speak as a dad that's had to provide, and now you can even speak as a granddad, right? So how is that weight and that responsibility? How is that on you? And if it's shifted, how has that been for you?
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it definitely has shifted in terms of the way you look at it when you're first a dad. Becoming a father, I mean, of course, becoming a mother is a tremendous amount of responsibility. Something that obviously we as dads have never gone through personally, but we see what happens when our wives are going through that process of everything from the pregnancy to the birth. But you look at it as it's a challenge in the very beginning, or it's very difficult in the beginning, because we don't know what we're doing. And we know that in society, as dads, we're given sort of these labels that you're the provider, you're the protector, you're the one that's got to provide for your family. Scripturally, we're of course the heads of the household, which means you're not just like a king who sits there and tells everybody what they have to do. Being the head of the household means that you are responsible for that family. And with that responsibility, with that great power comes great responsibility. Sorry for that quote, but but responsibility is an important thing to master. And as a new dad, you don't have the guide that's available. I can't just go to a bookstore and say, how to be a good dad.
Like,
A lot of people have
but
opinions.
there's
a lot of opinions about it,
yes,
right?
exactly.
But
Exactly.
to Brother Billy's point, I think that we lean entirely on the framework that's given to us from the Bible, because early on, especially as members of the Church of Christ, we're given that blessing, that privilege to be able to hear the words being taught to us. And even prior to, and we talked about this before the show, right?
Yes, that's
Even before you're married, the church places such an emphasis, such an importance on understanding our roles individually within that, because there isn't really anything available that would help us to lead our family in the way that we should be leading them, other than the Bible.
yes.
And so the ministers in the Church of Christ and in the church administration place such an importance and an emphasis on it, that they sit you down and they say, you're a mom, you're a wife, this is what you're responsible for. You're a dad. And it's like even in the workplace, right? When you have a job, everybody on your team has their responsibilities, and they have to know what their responsibilities are.
Yes.
So that way there's no confusion, there's no conflict.
That's right.
And in the Church of Christ, it's the same way. So by us each understanding our roles and our responsibilities, that's going to help us to be able to build that foundation for a family. And it helps the dads, especially for us, to kind of have that, because we're already starting off kind of under the gun, if so to speak, because we have no clue what we're doing. You as moms carrying that baby for 9 months, you kind of warming up to it, but then
Kinda,
when that baby
kinda.
shows up, the dads, we're all sitting here scratching our heads, going, "Okay, now what do we do?"
It's funny because then that kind of leads me into this because along with that, while we have the sky, there are still challenges. Let's get real here, right? We have all the tools and resources, even as members of the church. Um,
Mhm.
but it does get challenging. It does get challenging, and with those challenges, life, right? The pressures of work, and we have feelings, and for me, my name is a feeling, y'all. Joy. So
Always
I got,
joyful.
I know. Well, I try to always be joyful, but I got some other emotions too, and when those things kick in, so like, so I'm going to go back to you. So like when you're feeling those challenges, and when life comes, what is a tool as a dad that you do and that you would tell any dad that's going through something that's in the same similar season of life, or even just a dad, like when you talk to all the dads, like when you're going through these challenges, what gets you through?
Well, first of all, it's not just about me, it's about the relationship of the husband and wife. We're put together to work as a team
That's
to
true.
to guide our children. So if I have an issue or I'm having a hard time as a dad, I have to work, I have to provide, and then not only that, we're also church officers, right? That takes first place in our lives, for our household at least. We put God first and our duties first. Um, and it's so true. When God bless you with a partner, such as you, Sister Joy, we work through this as a team. We can bounce off each other ideas and even in our prayers as well. We have an issue here. What can we do to fix it? I mean, we're coming up on 20 years of marriage. So, so that's a lot of experience already. So I think we've already developed that foundation of what is it we need to do. Of course, we run to God first, whether it's through a devotional prayer, because it's real. Having children, providing, taking care of all the other things you have to take care of, and then there's different seasons of life as that child or children grow.
Yes.
Because now you have to switch up now. And then not only that, the pressures of the world, the internet. These children were born in the age of the internet. So there's a lot of bad influences out there that can try to creep in. So we revert back again to what the tools of church administration continue to give us. But the thing is, you have to use them. You can't just look at it, put it on the side. You have to use them. And that is what helps. It will definitely help.
Do you feel like those tools are what help? Because you said, I mean, it's true. Our family, we're a family of officers. And how about for the families out there? So if you're listening, or if we have some listeners out there who are not yet officers, what would be your advice to them? Why take on, because it's challenging. Life is challenging. Should they consider taking up additional responsibility by being an officer?
Well, I always, there's that verse that says, train up a child when they're young, and when they get older, when they depart from it. That always comes back to my mind. And I also replay back the marriage seminar we had when we first, was planning to get married. There was a lot of great content given to us. So
I'm glad you remember.
I sure do. I took notes.
Man, I wish we could record it, but back when we got married, they didn't have recording devices yet. We were literally having to chisel it in stone.
Yeah. So as active officers, I mean, for example, from newborn, our children were able to see, oh, my mom, dad, we put God first. So what happens is as they grow up, they're attracted to that lifestyle. They also want to serve God as well. They also want to pick up a duty in office. So I'm starting them from a very young age. I mean, even now as they get older, have them pick up an office, give them some responsibility, and they will follow suit as long as you're leading by example. I always believe, like we've been taught, we want to raise children in Christian discipline and instruction, because discipline can be looked in so many ways. But for us, it's Christian discipline that we have.
Okay, good point. Good point. And then for you, Brother Robert, when it comes to, those challenges, I want to hear from you because as a dad and now as a grandfather, right? Like when you are in, going through those struggles and those pressures, what helps you overcome those situations?
Well, the pressure changes between being a dad and a father and having that burden of responsibility
Mhm.
to when you transition to being a grandfather, because they're two different, like you mentioned, they're two different seasons, right?
Mhm.
And I think managing those challenges as a dad, especially because at that point you're overwhelmed with the unknown,
Mhm.
and the mechanics. I mean, we're well equipped. I think that if you paid attention during the marriage seminars, you pay attention during the worship services, you pay attention during all of the special lessons that are taught that focus on family and what our
Mhm.
responsibilities are within the family, um, and you use those, because Brother Billy brings up a good point. You can hear them, but are you putting them into practice?
Mhm. Really,
You
really
know, are
good.
you are you leading your family by example, in being active? Are you taking the time to be the one who ensures that your kids get to go to all the activities in the church, so they're surrounded by the other youth in the church as well? And do they see you being active in all of those activities as well? So being able to hear and understand is just one piece of it. The other piece of it, of course, is actually doing it.
Mhm.
And I think that to face those challenges, having faith and belief, and most importantly, because this is the struggle, is confidence. And I think that the lessons that we receive gives us the confidence to know that we're not going to screw this up, as
Yes.
long as we're following the lessons, right? Because
Yeah.
Yes.
that's your biggest fear, right, Brother
It
Billy?
is.
Yes.
Is that, like, I don't want to
You
screw, I don't
you
want to
don't
be
want
a
to slip
bad
up.
dad,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
There's a lot of eyes that's watching you. That's on you. That's
Exactly.
depending on you
These,
as
these
well.
little these little eyes from this little infant that you're carrying, and you're thinking, like, in 10 years from now,
Yeah. And
you
they
know, I
remember.
I don't want to screw this up, because it's sad when you look at outside at some of the families outside, especially outside of the church,
Mhm.
and you see the broken families, you see the children who have gone down the wrong path,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is purely because of a lack of guidance,
Yeah.
and a lack of instruction and direction, which they could have gotten, or
Mhm.
should have gotten, had they been exposed to and had parents who followed the guides that are given to us. And it's so simple because it's in the Bible. It's just
Mhm.
that we have to be able to be taught the lessons. You can't just
Yeah.
necessarily read the Bible from cover to cover and
Yeah.
think that you're going to read it like a mystery novel, and then I'm
You
going to
know,
have, or it's not an instruction manual that you read from cover to cover.
table of contents. Okay. How to change a diaper, how to get through this. But
Exactly. You're not going to find that in there. Sorry to break
yeah.
it to you.
I
But
think
but
that's
it,
such a good point that you brought up. Like we have the tools, and you mentioned that too. And I think we discussed this in our pre-show. You said yes, we have the tools and the guides for that, but we also have our spiritual leaders. You said that.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, if a family has a problem, and say your child is at adolescence and you're having issues, why not revert back to your resident minister?
Yeah.
Paul, can we be given some guidance and have a prayer?
Mhm. Mhm.
Our spiritual leaders are there for that reason. They're there to help edify and strengthen our faith, and to remind us also as parents what we should be doing and putting in
Yeah.
our lives.
It's
Yeah.
definitely, it's so real. Those challenges are so real. Real life really gets to us. And this is a call for all parents, for all, for all of us out there. If you feel like that you're in that struggle, you're at that point, there's still hope. And don't get discouraged, because it's a process. It's a journey, right? That's not the end of the road. And those tools are available for all of us, especially as members of the church. We have those tools. And that's not the end of it. And I think, as both of you mentioned, through prayer, through our leaders, we really, really just pull in, and we go in from there. There's hope. And our children will see that. They'll see that we're trying. They'll see that we're going through that. And I think that's really, really important. And um, that's I think that's definitely key. So, Brother Robert, I'm going to go back to you, because as a dad, that's what you see now. As a granddad, right? How is that when you have to go through that challenge? Or if you, let's say, do you see that challenge, or are you feeling like now in that season you're the one kind of reminding, you're kind of like one of the tools that's being turned to use?
that's a great analogy, and I think that it's because now, baby Jay is, of course, my grandson, but he has wonderful parents, right? Wonderful parents who are raised in the church, who are active, who understand, who have the responsibilities. And to me, watching RJ now in that role and watching him be the one who has to kind of do everything that I did 25 years ago, in terms of struggling and not knowing what he's doing, and just sometimes just exhaustion. And I love seeing him exhausted, because I'm like, yeah, buddy, that's, you remember. This-
Oh, that must be so
but
fun.
just watching the exhaustion and the sleeplessness, but it's also just the joy of watching, because we've said this in a previous show, that the barometer for us as parents to know whether or not we did a good job
Mhm.
is to watch them when our kids become parents, and see how do they raise their children, and how are they treating their children. Because everything we do right now leads up eventually to that.
Yeah.
That's the legacy that we
Yeah.
want to leave, right?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
legacy as a dad, as a mom, that we want to leave with our children is that for them to be strong in their faith, for them to be foundationally prepared to raise children.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the barometer. If you want to know that you were a good parent, how did your kids grow up? How were they as parents? Because
Mhm.
normally the way the world is, that you talk to kids, they're going to say, I don't want to be anything like my mom or dad.
Yes.
I'm going to be the cool dad. I'm going to do this. I'm going to let the kids do whatever they want. I'm going to let them stay out
Oh,
late. I'm going to let them, because
red
of all
flag
that.
all over right
Yes,
here.
because everything was so restrictive for them. But I think a lot of that was because in the church, the kids are there in the same worship service as we are,
Yes. Mhm.
right? They hear the same lessons that we hear.
Mhm.
And so it's not just, oh, that's coming out of dad's mouth because that's just dad.
Yeah.
It's coming out of dad's mouth because dad is repeating what it is that we were taught in the worship services. And having been taught that in the worship services as a family,
Yeah.
because we're all attending together,
Mhm.
then it's a lot easier for us to just kind of look at them and say, well, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You were sitting in the same lesson I was, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I love those
exactly.
conversations. It's like, okay,
Brother
yeah.
Robert, I have a little advantage being a CWS teacher.
Oh,
I
that's
was going to
right.
bring that
Because
up because that's
my children were
huge
able
for
to,
you.
so I got them there and I got them here. So that's like a plus win, It's like
Yeah, your kids don't stand a chance. They,
There
you
you
got
go.
them with the worship service, you got them in the C, yeah, because being a CWS, which is children's worship service teacher, for
Mhm.
those that are first time listeners, they're the ones teaching the youth the lessons in a way that they would understand.
Mhm.
Because obviously teaching a 4-year-old and a 5 and a 6-year-old a lesson that was designed and structured originally for an adult, it'd be difficult for them to absorb and understand. So being a teacher, and I have such tremendous admiration for our CWS teachers, because I sit there and I watch these classes, these worship services,
Yeah.
and I see these children, 4, 5, 6 years old, sitting there just listening and answering with a tremendous amount of discipline, because I I don't you'll never see that kind of discipline in a daycare.
no,
It's
No,
no,
chaos.
no.
It is absolute chaos. But in
yeah,
these worship services, you teachers,
Yeah.
kudos to all CWS teachers, because you guys have obviously tremendous patience, but you have the ability to really teach these children how to value the worship service. And that's the core. That's
Mhm.
where it all begins. And
Mhm.
as they start to get older, and they hear the lessons, and for you, Brother Billy, you're able to throw that out there going, yeah, not only did you hear it in the adult lesson, you
Yes.
remember I taught this lesson? And but that's why I think kids today, and
Mhm.
watching RJ, who my son is also a CWS teacher. He
Yeah.
grew up
that's right.
in a children's worship service,
Mhm.
and they just it just makes me feel like really, really proud to know
Mhm.
that that's the impact the church has had.
Yes,
We had something to do with it as parents. Okay, we're going to take a little credit. We'll maybe a 40-60 split on the credit, but that's a byproduct of the
Yeah.
church,
Mhm.
yes,
and the value that's found in being an active church member.
Exactly.
That's what turns them into good parents.
And it's right there. Like we keep going back. The tools are there. That's part of, like you said, it's the byproduct of the foundation and the tools that are given to us. And we said it before you get married, we have these seminars. Here are the tools. We get it again as reminders in our worship services. We have our spiritual leaders, that we can turn to. And, and it it feels vulnerable. And I'm going to put this out there for moms and even for dads. You guys carry this weight and this pride, right? You feel a little vulnerable when you go through those challenges, but part of the legacy and the leadership that we have as parents is to demonstrate to our kids, yes, we pray and we use those tools that are provided by the church administration to realign us, to get us back on track. And I think that just really just will help us to get through those hard times. Definitely help us to get through those hard times. And I know that there's a saying, right, for kids, more that we always say they're always watching, they know what we're doing, but more is caught than taught, right? So when they see us performing, when they see us during these hard times, uh, and we're praying, and then we're going to our spiritual leaders, right? They will copy that.
And just like Brother Robert mentioned earlier about the legacy, right? That's a legacy we as officers and parents, we want to see our children continue on with their families as well. They learn that they see the struggles we've been through, not only in our faith, but even in our personal lives, whether it's earning a living, whether it's, dealing with the influences of this world. But once again, we revert back to what we have inside the Church of Christ. And that is a church administration that is so loving to all of us through God's words,
Yeah. And that's
and you nailed it on the head last, I think earlier on the show, Brother Billy, when you mentioned, for us, prayer, right? And no matter what that struggle is, no matter what the problem happens to be, the children learn from us that we're not in complete control of our lives.
Yes.
Right? We're not in complete control of our lives. We are kind of bowing to the will of our Almighty God, trying to do our best to follow what we've been taught. And in the end, when we're facing and struggling with things, because I know, we talked about where the challenges and struggles, the fact that we rely on faith that, we're going to do the work, right? As dads, we've got to do the work. You got to put in the work. You got to work. You got to provide for your family. You've got to be a leader. You've got to be a good example. You've got to do all of those things. But in the end of the day, you rely on faith, and that's through the prayer. And that's, dads should be the first ones to lead their families in prayer. They're the ones who should teach their children about prayer. And as our children start to see that in us, that we're not relying on ourselves and our own skills and our own abilities, and that we're essentially surrendering whatever it is, like, God, I've done everything. I've done the work. I put in the time. I've made the effort. Now I'm leaving it to you.
Yes.
And let your will be done, right? Meaning, if it doesn't go your way, you're accepting it because that was God's plan. That's God's will. If it goes your way, thank God, praise God, for that. And I think that that's a super valuable lesson, because that teaches our children about acceptance.
Yes. And that's a hard lesson. That
acceptance is tough. Even as adults, acceptance.
Yes. Accepting. I'm in that right now. And I think with even, particularly with our youngest, that's one of the things that we've learned to put into our prayers, because we're so used to saying, help me through this challenge, help me through this challenge, help me through this challenge. We're so easy to ask, to ask for those things, but then we definitely are to this point where I'm like, okay, we can ask, but we also have to ask for an accepting heart for when it comes to these things, because sometimes it's ultimately not. It's not like what you mentioned. It's not up to us. It's not about us.
Right. And I do that all the time. I have to remind Sister Lulu that, she just has to accept me. I hope she's not watching.
With all her love, I know she does.
Just got to accept me, But but it's an important lesson for children. I think it's one of the key lessons, and I'm sure, Brother Billy, you cover this in your children's worship services too. That God's plan for us may be different than our own plans, right? And we have to be willing to accept it.
It so is. Can you guys believe? I mean, I think we can continue to talk about this, because it's always, I love picking up. First of all, I like picking on both of you. It's pretty fun. But we've already gone to the top of the hour.
Oh wow, yeah, we are. I'm just gonna have to ask our friends over at INC Radio Florida, Washington D.C. to let us go over a little bit. But yeah, thanks, Sister Joy. This has been a great conversation. I just absolutely enjoy any conversation I have with Brother Billy. So much insight, and I think
Thank
that
you.
this topic is something we can definitely continue to carry on. But
Um,
as Joy says, we are the fastest 30 minutes on radio. So,
mhm.
we want to, of course, thank everyone for joining us today on the show. We want to thank our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo Manalo, for continuing to be such a wonderful spiritual leader, to Brother Angelo Arano Manalo, our Deputy Executive Minister, to Brother Wally Tarai, our station manager, and of course to Brother Manly Andaya, our executive producer, and to all of our viewers for INC Radio Florida. We're looking forward to seeing you again soon. And a special shout out and thanks to Brother Billy Ali there in Orlando for being a wonderful dad, great leader, joining us today, and Sister Joy as well. See you next week on INC Radio Florida.